In today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys my expectations for the Detroit Red Wings heading into next season. Obviously, Detroit is in a bit of a rut after making the playoffs in 25 consecutive NHL seasons. They have missed the previous two, and every team goes through their rebuilding phase. But this offseason, it seems as though Detroit could have sped up their rebuild a little bit, and that's why I decided to give you guys my video on my expectations for them heading into next season. And obviously, you look here, they weren't a very good team last year. They were a lottery team. They were towards the bottom of the standings. They finished with a 30-39-13 record for just 73 points. 5th in the Atlantic Division behind the Florida Panthers, Toronto Maple Leafs, Boston Bruins, and Tampa Bay Lightning. Their leading point scorer was Dylan Larkin with 63, and their leading goal scorer was Anthony Mantha with 24 goals. Now taking a look at the offseason moves by the Red Wings, this isn't counting re-signing players, and I'm not including every draft pick. I'm just talking about the players who I think are NHL players and would be a regular on the team. So they brought in Thomas Vanek, who's going to be a regular in the lineup, most likely playing top 6 minutes. Then you got Jonathan Bernier, who is going to be the backup goalie and could push Jimmy Howard for that starting role. And then obviously your 6th overall pick, Filip Zadina, who in my opinion is going to be a regular in the Detroit Red Wings lineup. And that's why I have him on here. I don't have any of the other players they drafted because I don't really see any of them being NHL ready just yet, but I certainly think Zadina is. And then Xavier Ouellet, I think he signed with the Montreal Canadiens, so he was in the Detroit Red Wings lineup most of the time. So all in all, they didn't lose much, and I would take this trade any day of the week in the offseason. You can let Xavier Ouellet leave, and then you bring in Vanek, Bernier, and Zadina. And in my opinion, I think Cholowski is going to be NHL ready next season. He was a Detroit Red Wings prospect, and I've kind of been liking his game, and I definitely think he's going to be able to step in and take over Ouellet or Jensen's spot. So I'm pretty excited about him, and I'm also very excited about Filip Zadina, and hopefully Thomas Vanek can replicate the season he had last year, split between the Vancouver Canucks and Columbus Blue Jackets, because we could really use that scoring in our top 6. And then obviously I think Jonathan Bernier and Jimmy Howard, it's a better goaltending tandem than Mrazek and Howard or Howard and Coreau. I wasn't a fan of Mrazek, and I'm glad when we traded him. And also Jared Coreau, I don't think is an NHL caliber goaltender at all at this point in his career. So I'm very happy with the moves that we've made so far. I don't think we paid Thomas Vanek too much. I'm glad he only got a 1-year deal, and I like the Jonathan Bernier contract a lot. And then obviously Filip Zadina signed his entry-level deal. So all in all, I'm very excited to see how the new faces play in Detroit next season. Here is a look at the forward lines that I put together, and I think this is kind of what it's going to look like throughout the most part of the 2018-19 season. The top line, I believe this is what it is most likely going to be on opening night, or if you want to have the Larkin Mantha line as the first line, but it doesn't really matter. I think it's interchangeable. You got Thomas Vanek, your offseason acquisition, Henrik Zetterberg, and Gustav Nyquist. This obviously is if Henrik Zetterberg does return next year and his back doesn't keep him out of action. Second line, Zadina, Larkin, Mantha, and I think this would be one of the funnest lines to watch in hockey. Yes, they wouldn't be the most physical line, but definitely a lot of offensive talent there. Larkin's speed, Zadina's shot, and Mantha's size and skill. I think that would just be a beautiful combination, and they could do a lot of damage. The third line, Tyler Bertuzzi, Andreas Athanasiou, and Justin Abdelkader. Now, I like this third line a lot. I think Abdelkader brings the grit, and Bertuzzi, I think, played fantastic towards the second half of the last season. I think he's a guy who could maybe jump up to the first line and switch out with Thomas Vanek, because Zetterberg and Bertuzzi played really well together towards the end of last season. But I think Athanasiou and Bertuzzi and Abdelkader is a pretty solid third line. Then on the fourth line, you got Helm, Nielsen, and Martin Frk. And the wild card, in my opinion, throughout this lineup is Evgeny Svechnikov. And is he going to be ready to take on a full-time role next year? If he is, I could see him bumping out Darren Helm, or you could move Helm back to center where he once originally played, bump out Nielsen, and put in Svechnikov. But for the money you're paying Nielsen, I think he's going to be in this lineup. So I definitely think Svechnikov could bump out a couple of these players. But this is just kind of what I see the roster and the lineup looking like on opening night. I think Luke Glendening, should be traded or sent down to the American League, because I think you want to bring in young talent and you don't want to play Luke Glendening over the young players. So this is kind of what I think the lineup should look like on opening night. Now taking a look at what I think the defense core is going to look like, I think Trevor Daley and Mike Green will be on that top pairing, and then we got Cromwell and DeKaiser. I don't really think Cromwell is still a top 4 defenseman, but obviously Detroit doesn't really have the defensive depth to have him on that third defensive pairing, so that's why I think he's still going to be a top 4 guy for the Red Wings. And then on the third defensive pairing, you got Jonathan Ericsson and Dennis Cholowski, and I think Cholowski is a guy that could bring Cromwell down to the third and play him with DeKaiser, and I think that would be a pretty solid second pairing. And And then obviously in goal, you got Jonathan Bernier and Jimmy Howard. And I'm pretty excited about Howard and Bernier. I think they're going to really benefit off each other and thrive off kind of the internal competition. And I think that's something Howard hasn't really had, as Peter Mrazek sometimes challenged him for that spot, but he wasn't really consistent enough. So that is kind of what I think the back end is going to look like for the Red Wings. Now I put together kind of 6 guys who I think are going to lead the Detroit Red Wings in scoring next year, and this is obviously if they all stay healthy and play in all 82 games. This is kind of what I have it based off of. I have Dylan Larkin leading them in points with 73. I think that's a pretty respectable goal and not really kind of wishing a lot, because he put up 63 last year and I think he's only getting better, and I definitely think he's capable of putting up 70 plus points, so I kind of have him at around the 70 to 75 mark next year. Then I have Anthony Mantha breaking the 30 goal mark for the first time in his career, adding 22 assists for 53 points. I think that's a pretty reasonable total as well. Then I got Gustav Nyquist with 20 and 24 for 44 points. And then Zetterberg, 12 goals, 30 assists for 42 points, which would put him over 1,000 career points. And I really do want to see that happen next year. Then I have Filip Zadina, 22 goals and 20 assists for 42 points for the rookie, and I think that is a goal that Zadina could hit. I definitely think he could get more than that. I do think he will have more goals than assists, because that is what he is. He's a pure goal scorer. His shot is just absolutely lethal, and I've been seeing lots of videos of him in Detroit Red Wings prospects camps, and it's really getting me excited to watch him next season. And then filling out the top 6 scorers, I have Thomas Vanek with 19 goals and 20 assists for 39 total points. So I think those are some pretty respectable numbers. I think Tyler Bertuzzi is a guy who could jump into here and have more than that. I think Furk as well. But these are kind of just the guys who I think will carry the offensive load for the Detroit Red Wings heading into next season. So all in all, I'm very excited for next season. We have a lot of young talent to look forward to. I certainly don't expect us to make the playoffs, but I think we're going to be significantly better than we were last year. In my predictions, I have our record being around 39, 35, and 8 for 5th in the Atlantic Division, because I don't see us being better than Florida, Toronto, Boston, or the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I definitely think Buffalo could push for Detroit for that 5th spot in the Atlantic Division, but I do definitely see us having a better record than we did last year. 4 games over 500, I don't think that's too far of a reach. I definitely think that this would be a successful season for Detroit and their young players. I predict our leading goal scorer to be Dylan Larkin, our leading point scorer, and obviously leading goal scorer to be Anthony Mantha. So those are just kind of my overall expectations and just overlook on the Detroit Red Wings heading into next year. Like I said, I'm very excited, and I really do hope we can take a significant step forward back towards where we want to be, and that's the playoffs. So that is going to do it for this video. I really hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure to let me know down in the comment section what you guys think Detroit's record will be next season, who you think will be their leading point scorer, and all of that stuff, and especially how you think Filip Zadina will do. I'm probably most excited about that heading into next year. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.